this life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.
Honestly, BC, this could have been the way we started the show, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's the biggest story of the week, Luke.
It really is. It certainly is. We wanted to give UFC 250 its due, but this is enormous. So Henry Cejudo retiring, it seems like, because he couldn't get the fights with the money that he wanted. John Jones saying, peace out. Let me know when you want to pay me, because if you don't, I'm not going to be here. Jorge Masvidal now joins that chorus, by the way, and got to Twitter early and often with not just a claim that he wanted more, but with the citation of figures that have now been widely reported in MMA media about what fighters actually get. Now, we'll get to the Conor angle in just a second, because, hello, he retired, apparently, over the weekend as well. But first things first, BC, Jorge Masvidal feuding with the UFC. He adds, as we mentioned, to all these other names. Sean O'Malley, by the way, saying he wanted a new deal as well. I think he'll probably get one. But what do you make of Masvidal versus UFC right now?
Well, as much as you want to separate the two topics, I think Conor is a part of this advancement in lineage. And by the way, also check out Gray Maynard's Twitter feed for some honest breakdowns of the money he made and his difficulties financially in that run he had. What do I make of it? We said last week and the week before of the John Jones versus Dana beef about the Ngannou fight and about being paid for super fights, that it's maybe right message, wrong time, but that it's only going to lead to something and be a tipping point if more fighters follow him, if more become a unified front. And I'm not saying necessarily union yes or let's lock out, but that basically. And whether this was a, backdoor managers get together and plan this out, or whether this was individually one after another, realizing their lot and becoming opportunistic at the same time, they have sent a large message that says the way things are structured now, it's not going to work moving forward. And Dana's response to this late Saturday at the press conference was very interesting. You got the hard-ass Dana immediate comments, and then you got some sort of like vulnerable stuff from Dana that we don't normally get. Like, hey guys, like, I'm trying to keep this thing together. I get it, but like, what do you want me to do? The future, Luke, is going to be really interesting. This almost doesn't affect the right now. And the reality of that is, like, Masvidal wasn't going to fight anyway. Conor's not going to fight right now anyway. John Jones is not going to fight anyway. Without a live gate, these guys can't get paid the regular rate. We know this. Conor drew an $11 million live gate in January, right? When you take that money off the board, you can't pay him whatever he's used to. So for Masvidal to reveal that he was offered half of what he made against Nate Diaz for the BMF title to fight for the damn real title against Usman, he's not going to fight anyway. What I'm looking forward to seeing, Luke, is how serious these guys are at digging in and making this a real thing and coming together, because when the live gates come back and the ability to make money comes back, will everyone jump back in because A, they need the money by then? Will everybody jump back in for just a little bit more than they're used to because it's better than what they had? Or will they actually get to a point where they'll lock arms and say, we need to lock out now for the future? If that doesn't happen, Luke, then I think this is just a lot of, noises in a vacuum. It's positive noises like this. Like, people need to know this. People need to know that the UFC reportedly only pays 16% of their total revenue to the fighters compared to 50% in big team sports. People need to know that there's no fighter union, that the structure is tilted against fighters controlling their own destiny, right? You're an independent contractor, but you have an exclusive deal, and UFC has ways to add on to that deal, and that we're now finding out when fighters go public. But it's all going to matter when that money is back. Will people take it, or will they fight for it? Because, Luke, there's a larger conversation to have about the future. And it could be a dark one. And I'm not saying dark just for the standpoint that we could see like a lockout or something. What makes the UFC so great for fans? That they have control over everything. They're not boxing. They're the manager, the promoter. They're everything in one in a lot of ways, right? They make the best fight the best because they kind of have to financially to get to where they want to be. We want the fighters, especially with the brain trauma they take on, especially since so many of them can barely afford to do a full-time training camp. We want them to be taken care of because they deserve it. But what that future will look like, it may not be the UFC that we're used to, Luke. And I think we have to understand that. We have the potential to go through some very needed but very legitimate growing pains where you may see boxing-style matchmaking if that's what it takes to put these guys on the card and pay them what they feel they deserve. The glory days of the best fighting the best every single time, that may be, something like a casualty that has to happen for the fighters to get what they deserve. I don't know what the future is going to bring, Luke. I just know that UFC can't afford to pay right now. And, what will the fighters do when UFC can? Will they cross the picket line, take the money, or will they stand back and say, no, we deserve more. Let's fight for it.
You raise, I think, as someone who's covered boxing for a long time and understands where they are, where we are here in MMA, and why things might be trending in that direction and what that all looks like. I think I take that very seriously, BC. I think you're probably onto something now. It's a lot of that is unknowable. We don't really know exactly how it's going to end up, but could that be one permutation? Certainly, I think so. And we need to answer a question here, like, why should the fighters make more? What is their case? Well, as you indicated, the court documents, which I tweeted out extensively over the weekend, you can read them for yourselves. They reveal that basically around 18% or so is what fighters make year over year. So you could say, well, all the other professional leagues, they make around 50, but I think it's actually more than that, right? It's not that they should make more than 50, but my sense is, why do you want to pay fighters, their share, so as you call it? I think you have an ethical obligation to do it, especially as a fan and a media member. I think it's wrong for me as a media member to look at what they sacrifice on the altar of athletic glory, know what they generate from a revenue standpoint, and you can look at the math here, something that is called marginal revenue product, like what do they specifically bring as headliners, and then deny them that. I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong. I'm not saying the UFCs are, some criminal enterprise. That's not what I'm arguing. They're a business. They're going to do what's best with their bottom line. But I just think if you care about fighters the way you say you do, and you care about the sport the way you say you do, you have to honor what they bring as revenue generators, and you have to honor that sacrifice. And so folks might be asking, why now? It's the middle of a pandemic, and it could get worse, as Dana said, and who knows when this is all going to end, and blah, blah, blah. To me, it makes sense, BC. The UFC is operating better than virtually any other major sports league. Pardon me. But the difference, it seems to me, is that everybody is kind of wounded by the pandemic. Everyone kind of recognizes the institutional power of every sports organization has been substantially reduced. And I think that is detected by these elite stars. They're looking at this and they're saying, aha, the UFC probably needs us now more than ever. Now, there's reason to think that feeling is a little bit overstated due to the contractual guaranteed revenue that the UFC brings in these days. But at the same time, I sort of understand there's never a good time to ask for a raise. How many times do we see before every single NFL season, so-and-so is upset, Aaron Donald wants a new deal, and Michael Thomas wants a raise, and this guy wants to be the greatest quarterback, and they might be in the middle of their rookie deals in certain cases. Aaron Donald was, I believe, before he got a new deal at the beginning of 1 or 2 seasons ago. So what does it do? The media beats them up. The fans beat them up. There's never a good time. I'm not calling for a lockout because I think that would probably be pretty bad for all the parties involved. But I just feel like you have, the last thing I'll say on this, BC, and I'll throw it back to you, which is I just think you have to have a look in the mirror and you have to say to yourself, is it right to deny people what they have earned, especially when what they do when they earn is, in the case of Michael Bisping, lose an eye or pretty close, or brain damage. I mean, they're getting brain damage. You have to pay them what they've earned.
Or when you're Jessica Andrade, like 2 fights ago, selling off your equipment because you need to pay for training camp. I mean, there's been some crazy stories of big name fighters in that spot. It's so interesting. Like, this could go somewhere, it could go nowhere. And certainly, Dana did identify one thing. You don't have to fight right now if you don't want to. So there are fighters who will benefit. There are opportunists, right? Justin Gaethje took that opportunity against Tony on short notice, and look where he is. He's going to fight Khabib. So you're going to see people that are just that aren't making money anyway, that are going to get themselves into main events and may be able to make themselves stars. But long term, man, there's a reason in boxing why if you're going to pay somebody like a Mayweather a guaranteed $30 million, the undercard's going to be crap, right? Or if you're going to, like, there's a reason why that happens. The big fights only tend to happen when both reach a certain marketable level, and they guarantee, meaning the promoters, that they can get their money back by putting that on. I hope we don't get there in UFC, but some of that feels inevitable until UFC figures out how to redo their financial structure. And I think even more than ever, the whole idea of the debt that Endeavor took on to purchase them for $4.2 billion a couple of years back, what that means moving forward is going to be interesting. Dana can deny and say it has nothing to do with them, but it seems like it does. I mean, it's one thing for the fighters to say, hey, UFC, you're only paying us 16%. Like, we want 50%. But I don't think the UFC is financially set up to pay them 50%. So how is UFC going to slow their further expansion to keep their employees happy? And it's wild. You know, it's just crazy that a week ago we're like, unless more guys speak out, nothing can happen. Well, you couldn't ask for, 4 or 5 more famous people to speak out right now. The ish be hitting the fan now, Luke. And while Dana may have a grace period during the quarantine to kind of just be like, sorry guys, I'm doing my best. Eventually, right? February 1st, 2021, Luke, when those arenas are packed again per our debate and argument we have with each other, then we're going to find out. We're going to find out what happens very quickly.
Yeah, last thing on this is what I would say is, again, I don't really know how this is going to play out. I don't think the fighters will ever get 50 unless the Ali Act passes, which is probably dead in the water for the time being. A union would not guarantee them 50, not on everything. I think it would probably closer to 35 or so, but that would be literally doubling everyone's salary, right? So it'd be a significant difference from where we are now. We haven't even gotten to it. So let's quickly mention it while we can, BC. Conor McGregor suggesting that he has retired. Now, I thought these were somewhat distinct because he's not so much complaining about pay. He's complaining about he wanted a certain set of individual fights, neither of which I particularly like. But it was the common thread between what Masvidal is saying and what McGregor is saying, BC, is control, power.
Yes.
He's saying, I gave these suggestions. It was an interim title fight with Gaethje while Khabib gets ready, or the fight with Anderson Silva. And they just poo-pooed it. And his argument is they just seem to say no merely as an exercise of power, not because it's a good idea or a bad idea, just so they can say, we're up here and you're down there. What do you make of Conor McGregor's complaints?
I think it was 10%. Let me steal the moment of UFC 250 and make it about myself. Maybe 5%, a little bit extra whiskey during that tweet. I don't know. Well, who knows? Maybe it was 10%. Let me join in my fellow brethren and let's take a stand for the sport. But I think it was at least, 40% of, hey, if everyone else is going to give themselves some leverage right now, let me take back a huge amount of that leverage because I'm the only guy that's had some lately. So let me do that. And I think the other 60% was what Dana said. And I think he's right. There is no one to fight right now for Conor if he's not willing to take a pay cut, if UFC is not willing to make the creative matches he wants because they're too expensive, and because he was essentially stiff-armed by how things went in the lightweight division, how it played out. Khabib was supposed to face Tony, right, already, so that the winner could fight Conor. Well, the need of an interim in between that delayed things, so Conor wouldn't get the chance to fight that winner until, December at the earliest. So that's screwed up his timeline. If UFC isn't going to break the bank for him to fight Nate a third time or whatever, then he's just like, I'm done here, F you guys, and that obviously makes his value larger when they come to him next time. It's not him coming to them, it's them coming to him and saying, we'd love you to fight Khabib. Can we do this? But one thing I don't think we mentioned enough when we regurgitate all these financial facts, UFC going to lose $100 million in live gate this year. That ESPN pay-per-view deal really took some extra leverage from the fighters, right? When they, this pay-per-view on Saturday turned out to be magical. It's great. Everything was fantastic. It could have been a dud where you look back and you go, you had Nunes in the main event. You didn't really have anybody else that could sell it. Well, it doesn't matter because ESPN's giving them that minimum amount, which is a lot of money. Fighters ain't getting that, Luke, right? So it's really hard to take the thing out and swing it, Luke. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to do that right now.
Yeah, I don't know what that. I don't know what that last sentence means, but I'll say this.
Well, Luke, if you got a big, let me search it, right?
Listen, Missy Elliott, keep your hands to yourself. But here's my point. They say it's a '90s counter, but wouldn't that be a 2000s counter? But
yeah,
okay.
Jay's,
Jay's a nerd who wears white glasses. I mean, what do you want from the guy?
Yeah.
Listen,
I follow Jay's dog on Instagram. Look where the quarantine has me right now. Okay, thank you.
Here's my point about Conor a little bit on this. I don't love either of those fights because it's like the winner of Cerrone to me doesn't get you the title fight against Gaethje. To me, more would have to be done. Granted, they're just doing title fights in whatever way now, so I can't argue that the hardest way, but I don't like it. And on this show, I was pretty clear I did not like the fight against Silva. But I'll say this, if you're UFC and you have a choice to make about what he's doing this way and all the bad press that it brings, and they say they don't buckle to bad press, but the bad press is right on SportsCenter's doorstep. I mean, they had Masvidal on over the weekend. This is not going away anytime soon. I was on local radio this morning because they wanted to ask me about it, and they don't ever talk UFC. That was pretty rare, and it was just about Conor and Masvidal. So if this kind of thing continues, it's really kind of bad press. But the thing about Conor is if the goal is to keep the guy in rotation and he wants to take a fight against Silva, I mean, it's kind of like we talked about it with Scott Coker for our show Morning Combat Strikeforce Classics when they made Hendo versus Fedor. They had never really planned to. It wasn't a thing. And then, okay, eventually they just decided to make it. And here in this case, you would have them active. It would sell well. It'd be kind of weird. Again, I'm not up for it, but a lot of people would be. And it would keep Conor happy so that he's back around in December to take on the winner of whoever then. This would be a sort of a mulligan if he lost. I don't think people really hold it that much against him. So what's the harm? That's the level I don't do I love that fight? No, not at all. But if you're UFC, what's the harm?
Yeah. What's the damn harm, Luke? Come on.
The harm is Jay. The harm is Jay and his stupid glasses. All right?
Harm is they can't afford anything right now, Luke, because Tom Brady's getting a dividend, okay? Oprah gets a dividend. You know, everybody gets a dividend, Luke. You might be part owner of the UFC. That would be a great conspiracy theory to find out that Luke was actually a minority owner here.
Yeah, well, I'm not. Let me assure you.
This life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.